Right then, here we are again inside the wonderful world of War Thunder, where today we're taking a little look at everyone's favourite little Russian biplane fighter, the Polikarpov I-15. Now, before we begin, I should outline the new format for these videos. Instead of a single hour and 40-minute epic, I'm going to split these up into 3 separate videos, each corresponding to a section of these reviews. So today we'll be covering the history of the I-15, and the technical details and the battles will be in future videos. Sorry about that, but the Panzer II video literally took 3 whole days to upload, so there you go. Which means that if you are looking forward to the battle or technical details today, dreadfully sorry, but you'll have to wait a bit. Also, today's video will be covering the Polikarpov I-15WR, the I-15M22, and the I-15R. The I-15 BIS and the I-153 are both sufficiently different to warrant their own videos. And so, without further ado, let's put on our brown leather coveralls, strap on our questionably safe parachute, load our Nagant revolvers, and pile into the history of the Polikarpov I-15. Early Russian aviation history is a little scant up until the First World War, unless you count Mozhaysky's steam-powered flying contraption that allegedly made a very short hop, with the aid of a ramp, into the air in 1885. But we don't concern ourselves with allegedlys here, so let's start in the First World War, where Russia made a name for itself in the world of aviation with the Sikorsky Ilya Muromets. This was the world's first 4-engined aircraft and the first strategic bomber. It first flew in 1913, having been designed as an airliner, but was quickly pressed into service at the outbreak of war as a heavy bomber with the Imperial Russian Air Service. 83 Ilya Muromets were built during the course of the war, where they were very successful at their role. Only one Ilya Muromets was ever shot down due to the aircraft's formidable defensive weaponry, which made Axis fighter pilots very reluctant to attack them. This, combined with the fact that the propeller wash from the 4-engined behemoth could literally buffet a small fighter out of the air, made the Ilya Muromets extremely difficult to shoot down. Despite this, by 1917 only 4 Ilya Muromets remained in frontline service, the rest having been retired due to 3 years of wear and tear. During the Russian Civil War, the remaining Ilya Muromets flew with the Russian Imperial Army Air Service. However, these were later captured and pressed into service by the Red Army. The Soviet Union built a few more Ilya Muromets until 1919, and were used in their originally intended role as airliners until the last of these giants was retired in 1922. Other than that, during the First World War, the Imperial Russian Air Service flew a mix of domestically produced and imported aircraft, such as the Sikorsky S-16 and the Nieuport 17 respectively. When the Bolsheviks won the Russian Civil War and took control in 1922, they disbanded the various small Russian aircraft manufacturers and reformulated the Russian aviation industry into a more streamlined state-owned system. This consisted of several different design bureaus, or OKBs, which would design new aircraft according to specifications submitted by the government. Some notable OKBs include OKB 115 Yakovlev, OKB 39 Ilyushin, OKB 1 Korolev, which still exists today as Energia, which designs rockets, and the subject of today's video, OKB 301 Polikarpov. Manufacturing was conducted by separate state-owned factories. Nikolai Nikolaevich Polikarpov was born in 1892 in a little village called Georgievskoye. After a brief foray into becoming a Russian Orthodox Church minister, he moved to the St. Petersburg Polytechnical University in 1911 to study engineering. This was where he first encountered that radical new technology gripping the world at the time, aviation. After his graduation in 1916, Polikarpov went to work for Sikorsky, the manufacturers of the Ilya-Muromets. When the Soviets took control of Russia in 1922, Polikarpov was made the head of technical development at the Dux aircraft factory. It was here that Polikarpov designed his first successful aircraft, notably the R-1 reconnaissance aircraft, which, despite being an unlicensed copy of the British Airco DH-9, served as the Red Army's main light bomber and reconnaissance aircraft during the 1920s and early 30s. The U-2 utility aircraft, a video of which you can find elsewhere on this channel, and the I-1, the Soviet Union's first domestically designed and produced fighter aircraft. Although the Polikarpov I-1 showed promise after a shaky development, the Red Army Air Force did not accept it into service. Not to be deterred, Polikarpov set about designing new fighter aircraft. The next one was the Polikarpov Di-1. However, this project was cancelled after the prototype crashed in 1926. Next came the Polikarpov I-3, which was Polikarpov's first real success, with around 394 examples being built. These were used by the VVS, or Red Army Air Force, from 1929 to 1935, replacing the Grigorovich I-2. Alongside the I-3, Polikarpov developed the Di-2, which was essentially a two-seater version of the aircraft. This project, like that of the Di-1, was dropped when the prototype crashed. However, the next fighter aircraft Polikarpov designed was the Polikarpov I-6, which was commissioned as a direct competitor for the I-5 being designed by Tupolev and Sukhoi. Tupolev, however, was not particularly interested in developing a fighter aircraft, preferring to build big bombers and the like, and so Polikarpov was brought in to lead the teams developing the I-5 as well as the I-6. However, when neither aircraft was completed by the time the Soviet government wanted them done, Nikolai Polikarpov, alongside 450 of his co-workers, was arrested and sentenced to death for fabricated charges of sabotage and counter-revolutionary activities. Polikarpov and his fellow aircraft designers waited on death row for 2 months before the Soviet government realized that locking up and shooting your leading aircraft designers actually does not make aircraft design go faster, and so Polikarpov and his design team were moved to the Special Design Bureau of OGPU in the Butyrka prison camp and sentenced to 10 years of forced labor. In other words, Polikarpov was sentenced to complete his new fighter. Polikarpov managed to complete the I-5 design in 1930 and demonstrated it to the Soviet officials. So impressed were they at the aircraft's performance that Polikarpov and his fellow designers were given amnesty and released from prison. The Polikarpov I-5 proved very successful, with 803 being built between 1931 and 1934. By the end of its production run, almost 40% of the VVS's fighters were I-15s, replacing most of the older Polikarpov I-3s and Tupolev I-4s. The Polikarpov I-5 was only deployed as a frontline fighter until 1937, however, being replaced by the Polikarpov I-15. They continued to be used as advanced training aircraft, however, and some were pressed into service as ground attack aircraft and night harassment bombers following Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, and remained in these roles until early 1942, when the Polikarpov I-5 was retired. Notably, the Polikarpov I-5 was the primary fighter aircraft used in the early stages of the Zveno project, where 3 I-5s would be attached as parasite fighters to a Tupolev TB-3 heavy bomber. The Zveno SPB contraptions later replaced the 3 Polikarpov I-5s with 2 Polikarpov I-16s, but that is a story for another video, because now it's time to talk about the subject of today's video, the Polikarpov I-15. After Nikolai Polikarpov was released from prison, He worked with Pavel Sukhoi, where he designed the Polikarpov I-15 and I-16. Soviet aircraft are named after their designers, not the company that designed them. The design for the I-15 initially began as the I-14 monoplane fighter being developed by Andrei Tupolev. Tupolev, however, was unsure that the design would work, and so ordered two backup designs, the I-14A and the I-14B, both of which were to be biplanes. Nikolai Polikarpov was put in charge of the I-14A project. For the design, Polikarpov took his successful I-5 design and modernized it. The Shvetsov M22 engine of the I-5, essentially a license-built Bristol Jupiter engine, was replaced with an imported Wright R1820 Cyclone engine, which was more powerful. The fuselage was streamlined and the undercarriage was fitted with aerodynamic fairings, and the elevated upper wing of the I-5 was replaced with a gull-type wing attached directly to the upper fuselage. The new aircraft was designated I-15. The prototype was immensely successful, and the design was soon in production in 1934. Early production I-15s had to be fitted with the Shvetsov M22 engine, like that on the I-5, due to shortages of the American Wright R1820 Cyclone. These aircraft were still more capable than the I-5, and so were kept in production, and when the Soviet Union finally acquired a license for the production of the Cyclone engine under the designation Shvetsov M25 in 1936, the I-15's performance increased accordingly. 671 Polikarpov I-15s were built, as well as an additional 287, which were license-produced in Spain by CASA. One issue raised by pilots about the Polikarpov I-15 was its gull-type upper wing, which restricted visibility somewhat. This issue was addressed in the Polikarpov I-15 bis, but that again is a story for another video. The Polikarpov I-15 saw some action in China as part of the Sino-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact. The Soviet Union shipped over around 255 I-15s to China, as well as 250 Soviet volunteers to fly them, which China used in its war with Japan. Polikarpov I-15s saw some success against the Imperial Japanese Army Air Force, their stout construction and rugged reliability proving an effective counter to the more fragile Japanese fighters. However, with the introduction of more powerful Japanese aircraft such as the Nakajima Kai-27, the I-15s found themselves increasingly outclassed. The Polikarpov I-15 was also used extensively during the Spanish Civil War by the Spanish Republicans, where the aircraft was nicknamed Chato, meaning snub-nose. The I-15 was initially very successful in the skies over Spain, being very maneuverable and able to outturn their main fighter opponent, the Fiat CR-32, a video of which also exists on this channel. Although the Messerschmitt Bf-109, which was introduced later on the side of the Spanish nationalists, was a much more capable aircraft, the Polikarpov I-15s still held their own and proved popular with their pilots to the end of the Spanish Civil War. Nationalist Spain even continued to use the I-15 after their victory as a training aircraft. The success of the Polikarpov I-15 during the Spanish Civil War, however, like that of the Fiat CR-32 for the Italians, was a double-edged sword, for it validated the Soviet idea that biplanes were still relevant as frontline fighters. Red Army Air Force doctrine dictated that their fighter strength should be made up of two types of aircraft: a high-performance monoplane to intercept bombers, a role filled by the Polikarpov I-16, and a maneuverable biplane to dogfight with the enemy's fighters, this role fulfilled by the Polikarpov I-15. This led Polikarpov to invest time and resources into a new, more powerful biplane fighter, the Polikarpov I-153. That again, however, is a story for a future video. When Germany began their invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, The Polikarpov I-15 was still used as a frontline aircraft, although now performing as a ground attack aircraft. By the end of 1942, however, the I-15 had been relegated to second-line duties, such as training and liaison, being replaced as ground attackers by much more powerful aircraft, most notably of which is the Aviation IL-2. The I-15s were used in this role until the end of the war, and so ends the tale of the Polikarpov I-15, and so too must this video come to an end. But fear not, dear viewer, for the technical details and battles are yet to come. Until then, however, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.